Scranton, and I don't know what I'm going to call this video. Haven't decided yet. Of course, you know what the title is because you're watching it, but this video is going to be about a phenomenon that I've experienced several times in my life, and that's when you think you want something and you don't get it and you're disappointed, or you think you don't want something and you get it and it just blows you away with how amazing it is and how you couldn't imagine life without it. So my first example of this is going to be with my first cat as an adult. Her name was Mrs. Williams. And I adopted her with my first wife. She was like 10 years old when we got her. Fat, 16-pound gray and white cat, beautiful. So the story backing up a bit of that was my wife my ex-wife worked with a person who was getting married to a guy who was allergic to cats. So they had to give Mrs. Williams up. Their name for this cat was Pepsi. I don't think I've thought about that in years, like many years, because this is a long time ago now that Mrs. Williams came into my life. But her name when we got her was Pepsi, 16-pound gray and white cat. I don't know. But we liked the name Mrs. Williams because we knew someone who called their dog Mr. Williams, and we thought it was funny. So when my ex-wife came to me and said, "Hey, I want to adopt this cat," I was like, oh, something else to take care of, and litter box, and I got to buy the food, and I don't know, it's going to be disruptive, it's going to disrupt my work and all this stuff, you know. Then I saw how much my ex-wife now, I'll just call her my first wife. There's so many to keep track of. She lit up so much when our neighbor's cat came over, and we thought, it was on the roof and crying, and we got her down and kept her in the house for a little while, and then realized that cat belonged to a neighbor. And my first wife just lit up at being around this cat, and I thought, okay, definitely time to drop the resistance to this gray cat that's coming into our life, and just give my first wife what she wanted, what was going to make her happy. She wasn't happy a lot of the time, which I think was one of the things that led to our divorce, in addition to growing apart spiritually and in other ways as well. So Mrs. Williams comes into our life, and my first wife was so freaking happy and kept asking me, "Isn't she cute? Isn't she cute?" And I noticed that Mrs. Williams liked to be brushed, so we got one of those cat brushes, and I would sit on the papasan chair and I'd hold the cat brush, and she'd come jump up and sit, and she'd sit like right here, all 16 pounds of her, and I would just on her face, both sides. You know, there's a point where she would hold up one of her paws like, okay, that's enough, and then, you know, all the way back, and then clean out the brush. And mornings were interesting in that house because my ex would set her alarm for like 6:15 or something and get up at like 7:30. So she just keep hitting the snooze button. She needed that to wake up. So I would wake up in the middle of the night to pee, and then just go sit on the papasan chair so I wouldn't have to deal with the alarm clock roulette. And Mrs. Williams would jump up on me, and I'd sleep with this 16-pound cat right here on my chest for like hours. And so when my ex and I eventually got divorced, she even allowed me to keep Mrs. Williams because we had adopted another cat that was a stray coming around our apartment building. And she knew that Mrs. Williams was more bonding with me and this cat was more bonding with her. So when we split up, she said, I'll let you keep Mrs. Williams, even though, she brought her into the family, and I just bonded so much with her. And it was that thing where I almost feel bad about it because I noticed that she liked to be brushed, and so that's how I got her to start coming to me and start hanging out with me. But Mrs. Williams only lived for another year and a half or so, and then she died in my arms in the bed. That she was always next to me, almost constantly, right? Just like this one. I think Alejandra is Mrs. Williams. Came back to me 4 months later when she was born. But my point, the point of the story is, here's something I did not think I wanted and then got because I was, being benevolent or whatever, caring about how someone else feels. Always a good thing to do in life. And wound up being the greatest relationship of my life. Me and Mrs. Williams lasted for 8 years, and I had never had a romantic relationship last that long. So the next story is a story of not getting something that I thought I wanted. So second wife and I moved to the Big Island together from Ojai, California. Big Island is if you look at a picture of Hawaii and you see the island chain, it's literally the big one further south. And it's also just called Hawaii. It's the one with the active volcano. So we moved there because I understood through my research that it's easy to find housing on the Big Island, partially because of the volcano, but also because they have so much land there, so there's a lot of opportunities for places to live. And when you've got 3 cats and a dog, you can't be super selective about where you're going to live in Hawaii. Incidentally, Maui, which is where we all live now, is one of those really hard places, especially with pets. And Kauai is the other one. Really hard. Probably even harder than Maui. That's where I thought originally that I wanted to live. Anyway, ex-wife and I find a place to stay for 6 months while this woman that we're going to rent from is going to be on the mainland with her grandkids. So we have this whole set up. One of the ways that I made sure we got the place, because we had seen a bunch of real stinkers before we found this place. It was a geodesic dome. And I said, well, because we had sold everything before we moved to Hawaii. And so I had some cash, and I said, well, I'll just pay, if it's between us and this other couple, I'll just pay you the 6 months right up front. And she was like, yeah, okay. So then, I don't know how long we were in the house for. Or no, we hadn't actually started living in the house, but we had just come and visited a couple times. And my ex said, I want to buy this house. And I said, oh, okay, let's do it. So we got together with a landlady and we drew up some papers, and we had this whole arrangement where my dad was going to loan us part of the down payment. We'd give part of the down payment from that money, that nest egg that we had from selling everything basically. And so we had to sign off on some of these papers. You know, you're supposed to like inspect the house. I think we never hired a house inspector. You know, we didn't know what we were doing. But we were supposed to, I think somebody did hire a house inspector. I don't remember. But we were supposed to sign off and say, yeah, that we agree that there's these things wrong with the house. And we were then supposed to bring it into some real estate agency. And we kept putting it off. And then my ex wakes up one day and her face is all covered in red. And she starts noticing like all the mold on her stuff. Because this was during a time when the volcano was very active, and I think that caused there to be more rain, more dampness. There's places like that in different parts of Hawaii where mold is a big problem. So she decided, now she had some other issues with her skin, so I wasn't exactly sure that it was the house and the mold. But she decided there's no way she can live in this house. Luckily, we emailed the guy who had drawn up all these papers, who was a friend of hers, and say, look, we don't want the house anymore. And we were able to get out of it, even though we had signed things saying we would go through with the sale, because we had 2 weeks. And it was like day 13 when we emailed this guy. And I was kind of upset. It wasn't just kind of upset. I was upset because I thought this was something I wanted. You know, it all seemed to be unfolding really, really nicely. And, you know, my dream of moving to Hawaii, never thought that I'd be buying a house like within a month of getting there. So I was really upset with my ex and thinking like, maybe I'll just say, you know what, I'm going to buy the house anyway. It's money that I'm, you know, borrowing from my father and money that came from selling my stuff. And I'm just going to, you know, because I bought all that stuff before she came into my life. So even though we were married, that's how I was looking at it. Anyway, I didn't, you know, I didn't defy what was happening and instead went with the flow and didn't buy the house. And then by the time we left the Big Island and moved to Maui, I could not get out fast enough. I was so done with the Big Island. I'm sorry. I don't make these videos to rain on anyone's parade. Somebody got upset. A couple people got upset at me last time for mentioning Bitcoin. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to rain on anyone's parade here. But the Big Island was not for me. Okay, that's just it. It just was not for me. The volcano didn't help. Being chased down my own street for looking at someone when I was walking. The little dog that you know really belonged to my ex. Just walking him because he peed all over the place. You know, he peed all over that freaking house. Peed all over the other house. He peed everywhere because of the cats. This little male dog. And so I was trying to walk this dog at night to keep this from happening and had a headlamp on. And some guy was drinking in his freaking driveway. Got all upset because I was looking because I was afraid, you know, someone was following me or something. I don't know. It was weird, but I wound up getting threatened and chased down the street, pick up the little white dog and running and apologizing and like, you know, this was where I lived. And then walk down the other end of the street and there's every house you walk past, there's dogs barking. And like I said, the volcano and it was just not for me. The universe was telling me this is not for you, and at the same time calling me to Maui. So I did follow that impulse to move to Maui and found the perfect arrangement here for the first 3 months. So this is the part you're all gonna. This is like the grand finale story that you're all gonna really love. So could not be happier that I didn't get stuck with that house and then would have had to sell it, and you know that's realtor fees. You know you're talking over 10 grand. So the best story in all of this is that my wife and I now I can say wife, Mari Chris, Chris Dominique. She and I met through Facebook, and we just started connecting big time. We're messaging constantly, calling each other, Skyping, and at some point during all this, I realized there's a picture of her with her niece, and she looks really happy, and she says to someone in a comment, I hope mine are this cute someday when I have one or something. So I thought, I gotta have the conversation about kids, about how I don't want kids, and have never wanted kids. So I did. I told her that, and she said, well, I'm pretty sure that I do. And I said, well, maybe we should just kind of cool it on this thing, and because I know I'm not going to change my mind. I don't want to change your mind. And so I tried to stay away, but the pull was too strong, and I had already bought a plane ticket for her to come visit me on Maui, and I wasn't gonna say don't come after that. So by the time she landed on Maui, I was already completely madly in love with her. And of course, things unfolded very quickly with us, and we decided we were gonna, be together after just about 3 weeks of spending time together, and decided we would get married after just a couple months. Got engaged, and then did get married after only knowing each other for 5 months. So then luckily, she didn't say, okay, put a baby in me like right away. So we had time. We had all that time to spend together, and I knew that this was the woman I wanted to be with, and if she wanted to have a child, then I would go along with it. And by the time we tried to get pregnant, which was Halloween last year, and pretty sure that it was the first time that we tried, it happened. Pretty sure. Can't be positive. Hoping for a girl always. So we did the things they say to do, which is like days before she's actually ovulating, because you want the slow sperm, and slow sperm are the X chromosome sperm. So we did all that. She goes through the pregnancy, and then the night that Talea was born, which was 6 weeks ago. I think most of you probably know home birth, so I'm sitting right behind my wife in our bed, and the midwife is pulling Talea out and hands her right to my wife. And in that moment, I let out an avalanche of tears. I was just sobbing. I was the only male in the room, only one crying like this. And, it was just more than I ever could have imagined. And having, this little blessing. Of course, all the things that I was thinking about, that would be reasons why not to have a kid, were all very mental. All the mental things, just like with Mrs. Williams, all over again, it's going to cost money and time, and I don't even have time now. So now that we have Talea and we've had her for 6 weeks, I know it's only going to get better from here, and I don't even mind changing diapers. I think it's great bonding time, and it's obviously it's like the next step in my spiritual evolution to have this daughter. But I couldn't see that from my life is already perfect mindset. Why mess it up? So getting something that you didn't know you wanted can be the biggest blessing in the world, and I knew I wanted you, Caliandra. Actually, I didn't know that I was going to have kittens. I probably told you guys this before, but for those of you who didn't see that video, didn't know that Caliandra's mother was pregnant when I adopted her. Didn't know that she was pregnant right up until she was giving birth under the couch, and there's these kittens. So I knew I loved kittens. Oh, that's a funny little manifestation story. One of Wendy Kennedy's Pleiadian teachings that the Pleiadian channels says anything that makes you smile, it immediately puts you in your heart. So you think about something that makes you smile is the teaching, and you'll be heart-centered. And I saw this picture somewhere of 3 kittens lined up in sleeping bags, sleeping. And I thought it was the cutest thing ever, so I had it as my wallpaper on my laptop. And it just made me happy to look at these 3 kittens. And I'm pretty sure that was still the wallpaper that was on my computer when Caliandra and friends came through and came into my life. So that's one of those manifestation things where it's like you don't even know that you're manifesting something. You're just interested in it for the feeling, and then boom, you've got kittens. And it was such an awesome experience. And like I said, I do think it was to bring this story full circle, this story time with Daniel. I do think it was the way that Mrs. Williams came back to me in the form of Caliandra. So Caliandra's not fat though. She got a little belly. She does have a little belly, but she's a normal 8-pound cat. All right, so that's my story. Thank you everyone for watching. Blessings to you and your family, and I hope you're having a great weekend. And I'll see you tomorrow. Hey.